Hey everyone, welcome back to the Laid Off Legends podcast, where resilience meets reinvention. My name is Leo, a product builder and storyteller, learning and turning my Microsoft layoff into a different path. With each pod, I sit down with legends who are rebuilding their lives after layoffs and with the experts that are helping them navigate these crossroads. Today, I'm joined by Ashish Bhatia, a product leader who turned one of the toughest challenges of his career into a masterclass in resilience and strategy. When Ashish was laid off, while on an H1B, the stakes could not have been higher. Time limits, immigration pressure, an unpredictable administration, and a clock that did not stop. But instead of freezing, he built momentum. He went all in on networking, interview prep, personal branding, compressing what most people take months to do into a few decisive weeks. His story is not just about finding another role. It's about rebuilding confidence, accelerating connection, and proving that systems and preparation can beat very challenging circumstances. And today he's here to share all that and more. Ashish, thank you for your generosity. Welcome to the Laid Off Legends podcast.
It's my pleasure, Leo.
Let's jump in, man. For those who don't know your work, do you mind doing a brief intro before we jump into the questions?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Leo, for this opportunity. I'm working as a product manager at Amazon and Audible right now, but I spent 11 years at Microsoft. I came to US for the Microsoft job, and the layoff really hit me hard. At Microsoft, I'd been building AI platforms, both for pro-code developers and no-code developers as well. So I had extensive experience in the AI platform and seen this wave of AI even before it was the cool thing. And there was a ton of learning that kind of helped me skate through some of this kind of challenge in finding the new role as well, because of that kind of AI pedigree that was built along over these years.
Yeah, and the depth of your experience, I think that is an angle in itself. Another angle was really the H1B pressure. And so your story is unique in that sense because you had to take everything that you had and craft a story that was compelling enough. Why don't we just start there? Being on an H1B means you were literally on a clock once the layoff news were shared with you. How did that urgency shape your mindset and job search strategy?
Yeah, I mean, this kind of news is never easy. I wasn't expecting it. I've been hearing it on Blind and other places that something is coming up in May. Never in my wildest imagination expected that to be the case. And I guess it's the same for everyone. When you hear that news for the first time, you never expect yourself to be in that seat. And I knew it meant something different for me because of that clock ticking from that day one. And I knew I had to act with a sense of urgency. Day one is, you kind of numb on day one. You don't feel anything. Lots of things going in your head, trying to figure out things. This following day, and somebody at work also told me when they asked me how I'm doing, and I said, I'm doing okay. And they're like, tomorrow is going to be hardest. And that is how it was for me. I mean, I cried. I broke down so many times. I had folks from work called me and they kind of cried and broke down during those conversations because we have spent a long period of time working together and had good memories and built stuff that drove business and things like that. So we had a lot of past together, right, which suddenly was brought to a halt. The first few days are very crazy because you return your work laptop, you have to parse out all of your personal information for the last decade or so from that. And so that took most of my energy and probably kept my mind away a little bit as well. I remember the day I returned the laptop, it was as if the weight was off my shoulder. Somehow felt light. It was weird, but I felt light and I felt free. Again, looking back as well, I have nothing but fond memories of past work at Microsoft. For some reason, weird reason, I cannot pinpoint it why it felt light that day. I also remember that there's a lot of chaos. Right? We're part of 1,000 people in the first round and then 9,000 in the second round. So there's a lot of people that you know are impacted. Right? And one thing that I felt fortunate was I was in Boston, right, a little bit away from the rest of the folks in Seattle, and was kind of shielded from a lot of that conversation where people were still mulling over, right, why this happened, why me, why I'm in this pool and not the other pool and things like that. And that helped me focus my concentration on what's important to me, which is this clock ticking in, and help me kind of bring my energies, my mental acumen back to where should I focus my energy. And I feel before that week ended, I had a resume ready and sent out to people. I had a few interviews kind of lined up the following week. I moved really fast once I was able to mentally check out of that decision.
I really like that continuum where you were able to process. Most folks do process, but the time frame is actually quite open. And so they can kind of flow in and flow back out. You lead me to my next question. The most high impact actions you took in your first 30 days, knowing that time wasn't on your side.
The very first thing I remember I did was put a post-it on top of my location at home, my home office, which is the number of days which are left. And again, grateful to Microsoft. They gave us 60 days of grace period. And then for me in H1B, there's another 60 days. In total, I had 120 days from the day of the announcement. So that was the number that I put up on top of my desk, and I would change that meticulously every day, counting down to that final day. And my goal the day I started was I better land a job within the first 60 days, because if Microsoft would have not given that, that would have been my period. My goal was to kind of land it within that time frame, because the immigration process just takes time, right? I mean, even if you look at right now, US, they shut down a lot of that process. It's delayed for folks who might be transitioning right now at this point of time. So you never know. That's what I kept as a goal, and I have a good story to tell later on. Also, we don't have family here. Right? Me, my wife, my son, we kind of the only ones here from the family. We have extended family, but again, we knew that we can't lean on anybody. And most of my time, as I said, was with Microsoft, and we were breaking ties with them. So there was less that I can kind of lean on there from a network standpoint. Again, don't get me wrong. Friends at Microsoft helped a lot, trying to make connection outside and all of that, which was great. But I knew I had to lean on my network. In fact, the day of the layoff, I came back home, broke the story to my family. They were stunned as well. I had a local AI event planned for later that evening. One part of me was like, again, I don't know if it is worthwhile. Should I spend my time elsewhere? But the other part was like, networking is what will get you out of this. I'm like, I better go there. It'll be a way for me to kind of break that mental and emotional trauma that I'm going through, as well as to meet the people that I know, this community that I've invested in, which I feel part of, and hopefully something will come out of that. Again, that's what I did that day. I tapped into my in-person community that day, and then I continued that with online community and seeking recommendations, connections. Like I knew that that's the way that I would get out. And that is my recommendation to others as well, right? Your network will land you the next job. So invest in your network and drive it through that. As far as kind of breaking down things, I broke down my my 120 days into 4 monthly projects. And if it were today, I would do it slightly differently. But the way I broke it down was first month is big bets, be bold, go for big companies, FANGs, AI labs, whatnot, right? And then scale down to kind of mid to small domain companies, maybe other enterprises, partners of Microsoft, if you will. Then third month would be consulting or whatever to kind of latch onto a lifeline. And then lastly, if not, then fourth month start to kind of prepare to exit and go through that. And hopefully that time never comes. That was the thinking. And that's how kind of broke down things. Mentally, I would do it differently now, having gone through that process now.
It sounds like you targeted your most desired companies first. What are some of the things you would do differently?
I was joking last week also with a friend that when this announcement came, I knew that I had not interviewed externally in like 18 years, or maybe 19 years. Fact being, I was at Microsoft for 11 years. I was with Nokia for an additional 8 years, and we were acquired via Nokia, right? So I had to never externally interview for the last 19 years.
Wow, all right.
Very quickly, I realized I was not interview ready. And that came as a big realization or shock later on, beyond just the layoff, right? That when you're going into these conversations, you're cold, like you've not warmed up. You're not match ready, if you will, right? So my recommendation to anybody would be, hey, that first few weeks, take it slow. Don't take your most important bets, bigger bets during that time. Give yourself some time to prepare before you kind of latch into those opportunities. And that's what I would do differently. I mean, I would flip my month 1 and month 2.
No, I like that. I also like some of the tactical stuff too. A number on the mirror, there's something very tangible about that. You see that every day. It's both motivating and fear-inducing almost in a way. But either way, it propels you to action, which is the most important part. Any other daily routine things that you did that helped keep you on the move?
Yeah, I mentioned, I think even some of my blog posts later on during that period was you have to show up every day for yourself, right? It's like you're working for yourself and job search is your new job, right? Whatever was my routine before that announcement was my routine. After that, I would show up to my home office every day at 9, spend a couple of hours looking at jobs, applying, kind of crawling through different kind of sites that I was kind of looking at, and then in the evening before signing off again, I would do some couple of hours of that exercise. But in between, I take time to research about the companies I would be interviewing, do courses, look at material that I would use to kind of prep up, really do the prep work during the mid of the day, take lunch breaks the way I used to earlier as well. So maintain as much as possible the sanity in the day and have a schedule for yourself, because otherwise you just go crazy being in that. And then used to take morning, evening walks with my family. It was luckily also summer break. So my wife, my son, they were at home. So I would kind of take walks with them in the morning and evening after work.
You really mixed a lot of magic there, and so hopefully we'll be able to pull that out later in the interview, because I think that there is a combination of you go hard on the job search and the prep, but then you're also able to pull back and recharge with the little things in life that sometimes we all take for granted, but then become a lifeline in times of crisis and in times of difficulty. And so thank you for sharing that. I think we'll kind of wrap all those kind of later on in the interview. You talked about getting feedback on your resume and partnering with folks. How did you do that? How did you bring in a sense of collaboration and accountability in a way that changed the game for you?
You have to find like-minded people who are striving for similar things, and luckily or unluckily, right, for them, because they were in the same boat as me, we ended up finding some synergies, and there are a couple of friends, colleagues, who have had the same mindset of, hey, I need to break in, I need to find the new thing, which is kind of better than my current situation, and I'm going to do better for myself, right? So that's how I created a small cohort for me and a couple of my buddies who were looking out. And we started doing, obviously, resume preparation. Resume prep, I remember I went out a little bit broader, looking out of friends and family and other people who can give me advice on how to tweak my resume. Yeah, reviews are great as well. I would say take all the input, but ultimately be the judge of how you want to represent yourself, because that resume is your scorecard, your report card, or your brochure, right? So don't let it be somebody else's, make it your own. So I reached out to a bunch of folks to kind of get that feedback. But from a prep standpoint, we were very meticulous. We would actually do stand-ups of all things at the middle of the day with some of my friends who were in the same boat. We would do interview preps, interviews. We'd also, after successful or unsuccessful interviews, do debriefs with each other, share important lessons learned, exchange notes. We had set up frameworks that we would exchange on how to tackle a certain interview. And I feel without a couple of those folks that I prepared this, I would not have been successful if I didn't have that support system.
That's really powerful, Ashish. And the question that comes to mind right now is, when we send out these resumes for feedback, there's a ton of incoming in terms of, hey, here's how you could make it better. Don't forget about this. How did you aggregate all that? I really liked where you landed, which was, don't forget that this resume is yours. It is an expression of who you are. It's your brochure, etc. How did you manage all that feedback coming in a way that was healthy, given the time limits that you had?
Yeah. My resume prep was very accelerated, right? As I mentioned, right, the first week or the week of the announcement itself, I had a resume ready to go. From there on, it was mostly kind of fine tuning of things. The only challenge I feel you run into is when you get conflicting feedback from people. I mean, when everybody's saying, hey, you should say certain things that way, that's fine. But when it's conflicting, and I feel that is where your judgment comes on. How do you want to project yourself? Even you'll hear the same thing with LinkedIn profile as well. One of the feedback that I got, and which was conflicting, was some folks say, hey, don't put open for work on your LinkedIn profile image. Some thought that it depletes your chances of getting, it's not received well, let's say in the recruiting community or whatnot. But others were like, you absolutely have to let people know that you're looking for And I thought to myself during that period, I don't have time for that indecision.
Mhm.
I am actively looking out as actively as anybody can, and I want to let everybody know. So that's where my intuition, my decision kind of comes into picture, that I see where you're coming from, but I just don't have that affordance. I need to go all out, right? And I took a more aggressive stance with it. I don't know if it was good or not, but I decided to leverage that opportunity to tell everybody that I'm actively looking out. And you will not believe, like, at least the very first week, my LinkedIn was inundated. I could not manage it. I had to actually give my phone to my son the first couple of days. Just anybody who is showing support, thank them. If there is an opportunity, make a note of it. I'll come back to it later on.
No, but it does say a lot about how we manage these things, because at the end of the day, you're right. There is a balance you have to keep. You are the person that has to show up the best. That's really great guidance. You talked about some of the peer groups that you had. How did you find those people, and what did those daily stand-ups look like?
Yeah, how did I find some of them were from kind of past colleague that I've gelled with in past, right? So we created this small WhatsApp group or one-to-one group. One of the interesting people I found was just by sheer luck, somebody the following week, Monday morning, 8 a.m., when I was kind of looking at my LinkedIn, messaged me that they have an interview later that day and would I want to do a mock, just cold call, right? And I was like, which company? They told me the company. Consequently, I was interviewing with that company later on as well. I'm like, let's do it. And within half an hour, we jumped on a call and we did a mock. And that person had an interview 12 o'clock that day. They went through the interview. Interview went well. And that's how that relationship started. Again, we talk very regularly now. I mean, it was that moment of vulnerability for them, reaching out to somebody and saying, hey, you seem to be like in the same situation as me. Would you want to help? And I said yes. And we started that conversation and we chat almost kind of daily since then. And again, he was part of that peer group for me. That's how I found people. I also set up, I remember for the first couple of months, a weekly office hour. I knew of the 7,000 people, a lot of them would need help. Some of them are in very similar situation as me. And just by being able to bring everybody together and being able to do kind of knowledge sharing, we will create kind of good outcomes for each other. So I started doing these office hours every Friday. Again, that is another place where I found like partners who stuck around. Some would show up for their unique question, their query, and we would collectively try to answer that. But then some of them, again, stayed together, and that helped me find my peer group as well.
That's super helpful, because part of it, the struggle is in finding folks. You talked about how your vulnerability invited other people in, and there's something magical there where you have to be upfront with where you are and what you're looking for. And whether that's in the smaller, more private things, like sharing with your personal networks, or in the bigger, more open, like that, even that little LinkedIn banner and open to work, it says so much. To your point around conflicting guidance and advice there, it says so much there. But the opportunity to leverage that given your circumstances, what I think was really powerful. I love the intensity that you were bringing to this. I want to shift to the emotional and strategic thinking that you had there, because it's beyond the pressure for finding a job. There was a pressure of the immigration timelines, the disappointment of the layoff. I'm curious, how did you maintain a sense of mental steadiness, mental health? What practices kept you focused?
I had thought to myself, I'm pretty hardy. I've lived in several countries during my kind of work life and have been through several kind of roles and shifts and whatnot, setting up life in different kind of countries along the way. But this moment like shook me like anything. I have never experienced anything like this, no matter what I tell myself now and prior. Those were times where I was really vulnerable. I remember sitting out on my deck the following morning. I think my wife and this was still May, right? So the school holidays started only in June. So my wife and son were still at school. That's why I remember I was alone that day. Sitting out on the deck and looking at the backyard and all the greenery out there, I'm like, in a few months, it could be all or nothing. I might not have this thing that I call home. I've been calling home for several years. And this could all just go away in a snap of fingers. So at that moment, I like felt super vulnerable. One thing that helped me along the way was these cohorts, because that really was a source of energy that we are moving in the right direction. We are intentional about what we want to achieve, and we are seeking out these opportunities intentionally. So I knew that there's some goodness there, and I feel the other biggest thing was just support of family and friends. My wife and son were like pillars during this time, and at no point, like, I broke down so many times, I feel, during this process, and I felt vulnerable and weak, but they were like just stellar pillars. So I would say family, family, family for me. I know my son, the day of the announcement in the evening when I was leaving for the networking, he was like, Dad, if you have to go back, where would I do my schooling and all of that? Like, I'm like, don't worry, you will not have to go back. I'll do whatever. I'll work at the store if I have to, but you will not go home. And he's like, Dad, don't settle for less, like you're worth more. So those words stayed with me, that he has total conviction. And even now he says, even at single point, he didn't have this thought of that I would not land. And same was my wife. She was super positive all along. During moments of vulnerability, she kind of pulled me out of where I was. I was sometimes in dark places. I remember there was one day where I had received 3 rejections in the same day. 2 were kind of large entities, FANGs. And I was very hopeful for 2 of those opportunities, of those 3 opportunities. So that day I was like really, really broken. I was like, I don't know if I'm making progress or not, because the interviews went really good. In the morning, I actually woke up with really heavy heart and just low on energy and was not feeling good. Really, my wife pulled me out that day from wherever I was, and she was like, you're gonna nail it. I have no doubts about it. Just stay focused what you're doing and keep doing what you're doing. And I think after that day, I didn't look back. That was like the make or break moment. I think she pulled me out of that.
For folks who are going through repeated rejections and setbacks, what advice would you give them?
Rejections are super hard. I've seen so many people break down during this period. I've had conversations with a lot of folks during this time. There was a big cohort that was impacted, and irrespective of where you are in your kind of seniority, your hierarchy, rejection impacts everybody the same way. It hurts them deep down. It kind of shakes their belief about themselves. I would say lean on your support network. I mean, if it's your family, if it's your friends, whoever, I just lean on them and share your vulnerability with them, because sometimes we keep it all to ourselves and we don't let others know how we are feeling, and until we kind of express ourselves, again, it's sometimes hard for them to kind of come into our space and kind of even help out, right? I was super open about my emotions. I know there's some friends who did not tell their parents, their kids, for whatever reasons, and they had good reasons, and shielded everybody, and I feel they were kind of putting a lot of pressure on themselves. At least in our family, like when I landed back home from work, that announcement brought my wife was there, son was there. I openly told about what had happened, and were like, we'll fight this out, we'll do it together, right? So I think that openness brought everybody in, right? It was like a joint project at that point. So yeah, we got to open up to be able to share that vulnerability, to bring others to help us as well, I feel.
That's really special. Thank you for sharing that, Ashish. As we go into the lessons of the community and wrapping up here, what's the biggest myth when it comes to landing a job quickly after a layoff that you would like to address?
I don't know about myths, but one of the things that I've felt is there's no shortcut. You have to go through the grind, whether it's preparing, maybe your interview prepped, right? But the companies that you're applying for, they interview differently. So you have to go through the grind, and you have to have self-belief to challenge yourselves. I would say lean on your network, lean on your prep and your support system. Do enough research about other companies. You can learn a lot. You have AI to help now. You don't have to spend hours and hours kind of flying through kind of articles or financials of a company or whatnot. I mean, lean on AI, but do your due diligence, because a lot of that comes handy when you're in an interview situation. You don't have to kind of make up things. You're well informed. You're prepped well, I feel. Go through the grind, I would say.
Looking back, is there anything that you would have done sooner or differently? You mentioned being more practiced in interviews. Were there any other things that's come to mind?
I feel I was in a bubble, assuming everything would stay the same, especially in this day and age, things moving so fast. No job is kind of secure in that sense. You have to be continuously changing. We say this, hey, there is no mode for companies. The only mode is speed of change and speed of execution or learning. I feel that is very true for individuals as well. You have to be constantly learning. If you're not learning on your job or outside, then you're stagnating and not keeping up. Um, Learning doesn't end with you getting a job. Continue to learn. I would say be interview ready if you can. Stay in that mindset of challenging yourself, asking questions, being asked questions about the situation, about your ethos, about what you would want to do, what are your goals in life, and things like that. I'd get into those conversations with people because even if you're not preparing for your interview, you can have intellectually sound conversations on these topics, and that's what interviewers are looking for. They're looking for people who can think through a problem, break it down into small pieces, and can rationally reason about certain things, and that's what shows ability to solve problems and work through complicated work scenarios.
Super helpful, Ashish. So today's magic, where are you right now? I mean, you've been through this entire process. It was a difficult experience. I always like to ask all of our guests this, what are you doing on your piece of the planet right now?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm working as a product manager at Audible with Amazon. I'm working on search and content discovery and, of course, everything AI. I'm also trying to continuously kind of learn and share as much as possible. I like to go to local events, speak at conferences. That has created a cycle of appetite to learn. The more I kind of go out at these events and put myself out there and talk about stuff, the more I want to learn more and continue that kind of cycle of learning and sharing. I think that has worked really, really well for me, and I would highly encourage people to speak out. I think somebody said this, and those words really stuck with me. You don't have to be somebody to say something. You have to say something to be someone. Something like that, right?
I really like that. That's a really, really great one. That's awesome. Okay, so let's go into rapid fire questions. One mental shift that helped keep you focused during the 60-day H1B countdown.
I would say the biggest shift was cutting down distractions and becoming focused. For me, I would say it was a little bit easier in a hard way. I had my goal cut out to that, hey, if I don't land, I'm not here anymore. So it was a little bit easier, but I would say that is a shift that would help cut down distraction, become focused, and go after your goals.
Fastest way you prep for interviews when time was short.
You need to have some prep buddies. Use AI for help if you want to. Use AI as interview prep buddies. I was driving or kind of taking a morning walk or whatever, right? Whatever I was doing, I was always constantly talking and kind of interacting and challenging myself with different kind of scenario. Game it, right? In the sense, take external courses, external help if you don't have prep buddies and whatnot, right? I took some mock interviews externally, and they were super helpful because they kind of help you point out your blind spots. The message would be, don't do it alone. There's a ton of help around. Seek that help.
Any unconventional networking moves that worked for you?
I don't know if it's unconventional or not, but I used LinkedIn a lot during that period. It was, again, active user of LinkedIn earlier as well. But even during that period, I was sharing how I was feeling, sharing wonderful moments, how I'm breaking things down, how I'm processing day by day, week by week. I was sharing a lot of that online as well. I was also sharing what I was learning along the way, what's working, what's not working, how to kind of create, let's say, Google alerts for alerts for jobs, right? Irrespective of what kind of Indeed, LinkedIn, other places might be sending. You can set up your own kind of system for getting alerts. So as I was learning that from others, I was constantly sharing that as well. I also showed up at virtual and in-person events, grabbed those opportunities to speak at conferences, at other events. So it's putting myself out there as well as learning from those interactions all along as well.
That's powerful, Ashish. And I think we'll probably wrap up with this one. What advice would you give to folks either on day one of their layoff or as they're going through this experience themselves?
I'd say give yourself permission to grieve. I think somebody rightly said layoff is like a death in the family. It feels like that. felt like that to me, to be honest. So give yourself time to become at peace with your state of mind. But then also, I feel that will also give you space to kind of maybe check out from the past. It's difficult. I mean, it's not easy to check out from the past. My goals and motivations were very time bound. So I probably had that leverage and was able to use it. But just giving yourself that moment to grieve about it, sometimes it gives you closure and you can kind of move on. And it hurts. It always hurt. It still hurts. And I feel that hurt will never stop for me because I invested so much energy and time in it. That first week, the time that I gave myself, I felt also kind of gave me opportunity to kind of break free and feel that lightness on Friday.
It is a new beginning. It was a very meaningful
Absolutely, it's a new
chapter, but
beginning.
it's a chapter that came to an end. And then
Yes.
you know, the rest of the story is yet to be written. So thank you so
It's
much
very
for
interesting
sharing.
because I told this to, again, one of the peers that I mentioned right during this conversation. When he listens, he would know I'm talking about this, that I told him like, probably a year from now, we might actually thank the situation because it got us out of wherever we were and let us bloom and explore new opportunities. And again, every destruction leads to probably new creation.
It's an exciting thing that is when you talk about the road less traveled and whatever road you take, you know, the motivate, how you actually got to the junction is always an interesting story. Where you go from there is its own kind of evolution. But I agree with you. I think there's something to be said about how you arrived at that point, which ultimately is, again, as with all things, it's a point of gratitude.
Yeah, 100%. Ton of gratitude to everybody who showed up, who came to help. I had so many unknown angels who came to help from all over the place, and I'm super, super thankful. Nothing but gratitude for all of them.
That's awesome, Ashish. Thank you. Folks, thank you for listening to today's episode. I hope this inspired you to not just take hold of what you have, but also put in some of the practices that Ashish mentioned, not just for your current chapter, but for what's to come. And so if you enjoyed this, please subscribe and share with someone who you believe may need to hear it. And if you have any questions, please leave them below. I answer those personally, and I could pull in Ashish as need be. For more insights, please do consider joining our YouTube channel, our LinkedIn company page, and our school community with also laid off legends who are coming together to encourage each other, inspire each other on what they're doing next. Remember, every ending holds the blueprint for a new beginning. So thank you everyone for the time, and we will see you next time.
Okay.